continues, as you might have gathered, tomorrow and then next week and the week after, always Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm welcoming today Yasu Santo, who is obviously you all know from the computer lab upstairs, and I think his work over quite a number of years in the area of fusion and relations between real and virtual spaces could be quite interesting for us this term, where we are discussing corporate organization and the kind of double order which starts to emerge within there, between their kind of spatial configuration and the configuration of their IT communication, etc. So, and there might be the space for some of these tools and techniques and concepts Yasu is presenting in terms of a what I've been referring to earlier as a hyperspace, a kind of interface space between an information space and the actual physical architectural order. So, well, welcome to Yasu.
Thanks, Patrick. Well, today, this has not much to do with it, since this is a startup sort of thing of the Media Lab. I think you're putting up soon, so it won't come out. Anyway, today's main purpose is to sort of talk about network space, or whatever you call it. There are digital spaces and network spaces, and I'd like to sort of talk about what the differences could architects sort of use these spaces, or should architects be thinking about these spaces, or should they be doing something about it? And I also want to talk about some sort of more like a physical space to relate to the actual sort of digital network spaces. To begin with, a lot of people think that the browsing internet with an internet browser is the most important and significant invention made possible with the digital networks. Well, it's certainly true that the possibility of what one can do with the internet is amazing and fantastic, and you sort of like sit in front of it browsing for ages. But many people overestimating what it can do, or underestimating what it can do, both. They think what they're getting is great, that's overestimation in a way, and they're not using it to its full extension, so they are underestimating its possibilities. And the possibility of how one can use digital network be far more innovative and useful than this, or can we, as an architect, use the strength of this somehow to come up with a new kind of spaces in architectural context? It sounds like sort of like a bit too much in a way, but it's basically, can we use it within architectural sort of practice or architectural context, basically? Basically the easiest digital network can be achieved between just two computers side by side, within a single room or single tiny little space. Well, you do this to share disk spaces mainly. Well, you don't really share information in this scale, since a direct communication, you sort of move to another computer, just sit on the next chair with a computer to share the information. You don't really network between these places. Your physical sort of activity would take care of like sharing information. When this network expands to the size of a building, let's say the AA or something, well, it slightly changes. Well, it will start to make more sense to share information, such as database, so that people do not have to travel to another part of the building to get a specific data and the information they need to have locally. Some people, however, would still choose to get to the source of the information by actually going to the source of the information using corridors, staircases, whatever. So in this scale, people would still choose to get information on foot, or by actually getting there. When the network actually extends into a larger scale, or regional, national, international, it becomes more and more difficult to physically get to the information source. The digital network naturally becomes far more convenient, and thus it starts to replace more, or sometimes all, from subjective point of view in a way, of physical intermediary spaces as the distance gets bigger between where you are and the source. well, if you get some information in the States, some people decide to travel to the US and do something, but they, well, you know, you just like, it ends up as information in the States and you can never get to it. It's just useful information, that's all basically. No physical context whatsoever in a way. So, with the digital network totally replaced the intermediate physical space we still have today, or to be more precise, should it replace the intermediary physical space or not? Well, let's talk about the physical spaces. There are spaces which intersect, obviously, sort of like few narrow spaces to wide spaces, whatever. There are spaces which are dependent to each other, relying on each other. So, like this space exists because of another space, and vice versa. And there are spaces which lie between spaces. And all I'm talking about physical spaces. Well, this in-between or intermediary space is the main concern of today's talk, basically, physical and digital. First of all, there are two kinds of intermediary spaces. First one, I'm sort of going to, I mean, it's not such a great thing. I used to have a sort of a better sort of picture before, but I'll sort of quickly show. This is King's Cross area. I mean, I'm thinking of actually using this for intermediate schools project. This is sort of quite amazing residual spaces in King's Cross area. Well, it used to be a major sort of railway docks, but since there are the only two of them are in use right now. They turned the rest into, say, car parks, car hire places, drive golf range, basically. And all these storage spaces, not under control. Each of the sort of tiny spaces have control over itself, but well, overall it's just a sort of totally chaotic space. And so this is sort of like one in terms of intermediary space, but this is basically what I call intermediary space in time. We'll say there are historical residual space and functional residual space, which can be defined over a sort of period of time. So it's in a sort of, people who use this space may think that, oh, I'm using it, this is my space or something, but to me it is more like intermediary space. It's transition from one to another in time. Still, so any space in a way is the one, but this is not really going up to the current sort of need at the moment. And another space is more sort of straightforward, intermediary space between spaces, basically. Well, this is what I sort of just mentioned. Well, say you travel from home to the AA, and so basically between where you are to your destination, you sort of go into the tube. You go out from your room, go down the corridor, leave the building, walk to the station, into the station, out of the station, into the AA. So all these spaces is not really your destination, but it's more like intermediary spaces. So in between spaces, that is. The space we are eagerly replacing these days with digital network these public spaces most of the time. So you can, instead of going from one to another in order to get something, digital network sort of basically takes over that area. So in a way, it is digital, so that network is actually replacing the physical spaces for some people. They never get to see the spaces where people used to see when they didn't have the sort of digital networks. Of course, telephone did that, mail did that. The digital network is like more drastically replacing these places. Among them, the most sort of affected, in a way, are those which can be called known places. I don't know if you've read the Mark Oj's book about known places. Talk about sort of like, in short, spaces without places without character, such as like a large international airport. So these places are sort of one of the sort of great examples of that. And in a way, we can say that an internet web page is one of its ultimate forms. Well, one of its sort of like ultimate how do you call it? Ultimate space in a way, which is sort of currently being replacing things. Well, anyway, I think I wasn't clear about this bit now, but and stop this one. Well, since digital network is capable of replacing a space, well, can we sort of assume that digital network can be a space? well, it's kind of natural that I sort of come to this sort of question. But, well, I mean, at least we know that there are many forms of digital spaces. Well, digital spaces, but not digital network spaces. Digital spaces use computer, whatever, so digital mean to produce space. Network space, in a way, is more like intermediary spaces I have. There are virtual reality and cyberspaces and so on. I mean, ideas, many of these seems to be quite heavily dependent to the visual aspect of physical world. So you look at the sort of building, some people walk through sort of animation of it, but that's totally relying on the visual aspect or sort of functional aspect of the real, I mean, more like visual aspect. You understand that space because you know that that can exist in the real world. And so, in other words, most of these virtual and cyber spaces are sort of simulation of real physical space where some events or activities takes place. Well, such as sort of, I mean, most of them are simulation of real physical, simulation of real physical spaces, but you won't be able to actually go into. So, because like such as financially, technically impossible spaces that you want to make, or dangerous activities or events will be held in a sort of virtual spaces, therefore, or something you won't be able to do right now, such as architectural three-dimensional models. Well, many architects now seems to be getting into the world of computer 3D graphics, hoping to understand the space and impress both clients. And well, I mean, I have nothing against this because I use this sort of method all the time, and I think it's a perfect tool to do that, to understand spaces, and of course to make your client understand the space that you're trying to sort of try to offer. Well, however, though, some are mistaken in believing that they are producing a space when all it actually is a representation of simulation of the space they want to realize. At least to me, these spaces are not space. This is just a simulation of a real space. Then how would I be able to talk about digital space in architectural context if they are sort of non-real, real? Do we use it or not? Can we justify some sort of space as architecture or not? Basically, I'd like to go back to the idea of networks replacing the physical spaces, as I said before. Well, first of all, let me clarify something. Well, unfortunately, I won't be able to present you with the space I am talking about because I'm still sort of trying to come up with one, which I can I can justify to myself. But before I get into before I get into further sort of conversation of this thing, I want to show some kind of digital spaces I sort of acquired. Okay. This is old computer room. We used to have a computer room sort of in third floor level. And I did a project, it was a project in New York, and it was about junction spaces basically. But I realized more I tried to sort of do a project and try to sort of print out, try to do things in bits and pieces, I realized that I'm sort of actually getting away from the essence of this project that I wanted to do. So I sort of, I just realized I'm going to have to actually make the site myself in order to understand how this site works and everything in New York in a smaller scale. Fortunately, at that time, I could have a whole of the computer room for my sort of presentation area. So I converted the computer room into some sort of presentation space plus navigation space. So all of these people, I sort of invited people to come around so that they could sort of participate in sort of getting information throughout. So you look at the main screen first, then you get the information out of it, and you go to a smaller screen to see further information. And hopefully I just thought it would sort of bring more chances to the people, bring more chance to the meeting, with the encounters in a way, within a sort of like a digital enhanced space in a way. It's not a network space, or it's not a digital, it's more like a digitally enhanced space in a way. So that was my project when I was in diploma school, and I'm still sort of hanging on to the idea of these sort of residual spaces and intermediate spaces. I was dealing more with physical aspects of it, but now I sort of came back and thought, oh hey, why don't I sort of do more about sort of networked digital spaces? And then, well, I have another things on the I have some other bits and pieces on computer. Let's sort of get into some sort of example of interesting bits and pieces on the internet right now. It's not the space or anything, it's still representation or some sort of it, but I still think, I think these things I'm going to be showing is somehow interesting enough so that you can sort of pick up the essence of it and turn it into something which is slightly more closer to architecture, hopefully. First of all, this is just a few screenshots of Quake. Well, basically you sort of move around the first-person perspective sort of shoot and kill game. But the most important thing about this game is it has its own sort of internet capability. If you click onto this multiplayer bit, you can play Quake with people on the same network, or actually people on the internet who happen to have Quake. So you click onto this and the multi-line. But basically it will try to log on to one of the server you sort of select. Then that server holds the information of the site, basically. Then you sort of like, that's sort of small information, so even with modem, you could actually go through the space that the server holds, plus the information of the rest of the people who's at the site. So basically, because at the point we have to quit because we didn't have any special plugin to get onto the server. So I mean, this is all I have. But this idea of being able to share space, share a sort of virtual space, an idea of holding sort of massive information on your local CD and sharing just the most important information between network is one of the sort of interesting things. So they sort of choice of information basically they're making in order to realize this kind of space. And next bit is, this is like, I did quite a while ago. This is sort of like this little boundary. When I made it, I really didn't know what I can do with this. I still don't know, but I'm sort of like adding bits and pieces all the time, every time I have some time to sort of see. Basically, this is the boundary of your area. You introduce these zones. Then these male dude and a female person sort of walks around the area. But it was just doing that. So every time you sort of get onto zone 5, it tells you that the this he entered 0 times. She entered 0 times. That's why they don't have color. As soon as it enters one of the zones, what you will get is the sort of information will be sort of updated that she's been here for a while. Then, well, recently I sort of realized, okay, well, why don't I sort of enhance this thing so that each of the zones are actually the information, and these people are people who are randomly walking around in a sort of, say, real space or virtual space, basically browsing. Well, let's say, for me, I want to get some information off. Okay, I'll say I go to zone 3. That will sort of bring a web page. And this is one of the, this is a sort of, this came up because one of the guys in there has moved into the one of the spaces in there. This is actually a hypertext, this is basically a dictionary, internet dictionary they have. So I'll sort of make it smaller so that we see the rest of the things happening. So this one is this yellow dude. I think that she's actually entered this zone. But anyway, so this is what I need to sort of read, the information I want to sort of see for today's presentation. Well, some of you may know about this, but this is the global positioning system. And one called Laura Kurgan, and I think that was her name, did a sort of project with it. I think she's an architect or spatial whatever. and wanting to understand where you are in today's sort of digital network spaces. And so they ship with this like global positioning thing. It's such a simple idea. So basically 25 satellites going around the Earth and locate you. But this sort of dot, they're basically, you are actually standing still for 10 minutes. Then you get this sort of huge overlap because, well, obviously because of the interference from the military and the atmosphere and everything, it cannot locate you in a sort of right position. But well, this is like more like 2 hours standing, so you get amazing drift around. You are in the same position, but information thinks you are all over the place. That's sort of misunderstanding of the information. But as soon as you it reached the end actually. It cannot handle anymore. But anyway, well, I don't mean. That the third one I had in there. That one was actually there's a static position that satellite knows that it always exists, which doesn't move. So as soon as you put the some sort of like a devices into the array, well, basically you tell satellites that you are with that sort of static information thing. It will specify. Ooh. Let's go to zone 3 again. This one, yeah. It will sort of specify where you are, and then the sort of all these scattered things becomes much closer. Oh, every time I get to this one. Well, and so on. Oh, no, actually, it's still there. And this one is actually you walking for me. It says 1.5 minutes in basically a straight line within the site. And look at that. There's no such thing as a straight line in there. You have like there's one side point there, the other, and the other side has a point, and it's totally nothing. You just don't have any reading. You see it's like satellite not doing its work, but. But as soon as you plug in one of that static information into your sort of, basically what you do is you move around with the transceiver thing. Then you get to this thing. Now, because it's correct, it means that all the information is being corrected. So these, like, it used to be like all these like errors elsewhere has been corrected, and there's like these references like get back to in more of a sort of like it's more sort of settled now, and you could actually draw a line of the path you actually took, and you can see that it's quite accurate. Well, this is just a sort of, I'm just telling this not to sort of go further with this. This is just a straightforward, example of what network spaces are sort of, what people are trying to get at with network spaces. Therefore, satellite, with how satellites sort of draw a plane and then recognize where you are and stuff like that. So, that's good. Then it will, I don't want this one, so it's fine. The problem with this is cursor totally disappeared. I'm not going to get into this global positioning system anymore, so it seems to crash my Netscape. But anyway, so that's one of the examples. But there are more. So that one was like, I think this experiment was done in 1994, so it's quite old. Quite old in a way. But anyway, so basically, so you have a choice of which information you want to see, and you get to see what the rest of the people, in this case you only have 2 people wandering around, are doing, and what sort of information they are looking. Well, the strength about this internet thing is that this sort of interface, because, well, obviously I'm not a programmer, to so that I won't be able to make a commercial sort of amazing piece of software. So this is my limitation in a way. This is all I can do using given Netscape capability and director capability. But what I'm trying to sort of get at is if you sort of can start to talk to someone who can develop the things. Well, I mean, the most important thing about it is like every time these guys walk into one of these areas, you are also watching what someone else is watching. So if someone else knows much better about those cyberspaces, I mean, know much better the internet spaces, you get to see what the people are actually getting at. And if you have more and more and more of this, I think you will start to form a pattern, and these spaces will start to interlink. Maybe people will go from this space to another and getting these ideas. And well, let's go into another one. So 1 and 2 we've seen already because the other guy. 1 is a dictionary. Number 3 is a global positioning system. But let's say number 2. I don't even remember exactly what it is. And as I'm watching, as soon as one of these people walk into one of these areas, you get another window popping up in front of you. Oh, this is a very interesting point. I mean, this is basically a Guggenheim virtual atlas, they call it. This is sort of navigating system in a sort of really, oh, sorry, this is GPS. Oh, I know, because some of the people, 2 people who's in there has walked into GPS, which is zone 3, and this one must have gone into the same area I have walked into. Well, it takes some time to download this for some reason. I'm sure the network in the school is busy. But what this doing is, this is set up the virtual atlas of the thing. And the interface is quite amazing, although it still has a limitation of Netscape, basically. But, well, Netscape is one of the only sort of Netscape / Explorer, whatever you name it, but are the only sort of common thing. It's kind of people are bound to sort of stick to this thing. But my ultimate thing would be more like modular is Quake. If you could share that sort of proper purpose-built sort of software between networks, you can really start to sort of think about producing spaces between these areas. And also, of course, there are examples of that as well. People are actually trying to do this in Netscape internet sort of area. This is a Guggenheim one. So you sort of pull out this menu, and basically, so you have this sort of interface, and now I get into virtual map. And you get sort of this thing coming out. It's quite clever space. I mean, quite in the internet area. Then you click onto one of these. Click onto that. And you have to wait for it while this is a bit of a network problem all the time. But anyway, what their aim is to actually create these visual navigation system within a given sort of Netscape interface, which is quite amazing because, well, it simply is amazing. Because it's interesting site would be able to attract a lot of people, and there seems to be. Actually, I found this site through the Laura Kogan thing because I sort of like looked at me. It was done in '94, and I never sort of tried to think that she did something else. Obviously, she would be doing something else, and she came out with one of these sort of content. Well, I think it doesn't want to go any further, but anyway, I'm just going to put this on. This is, well, if you want to understand about this global positioning system, it's the web page for that. Some of these information, it's changed to this because obviously one of these guys entered some other spaces. But anyway, so, another one came. So, this is a very straightforward, very simple sort of way of forming digitally networked space. But if this can sort of go on further and further, I'm sure sort of there are things architects should be able to sort of take more part. Well, at the moment, basically, the architects are either just getting into three-dimensional side of the computer, and then being, obviously grad design people are more aware of, the digital spaces basically, the digital space has all sorts of meaning. Some people use digital space in order to say, oh, I have a three-dimensional model and I have a digital space. And that, which is totally wrong, I think. Well, it's not wrong, but I don't think it's the right way of putting it. And also there are spaces, digital spaces, digitally enhanced spaces. By having all these help of digital sort of digital whatever, networks or whatever, your physical space has more use, or it becomes totally the dynamic. Or there is my sort of what I want to sort of go more and more is the digitally networked space. Network obviously is invisible stuff, and there's no visual sort of representation to that. But I think if there's a lot of things architects could be doing into that area, so we are sort of in a way experts of designing spaces, and instead of well, of course, graphic design, 3D graphics designer or network engineers are actually producing these spaces these days. But I would totally think the architect could be designing a special spaces. Physical means then that could go back to physical or whatever spaces, I think. Well, this is basically all I have to talk about in terms of network spaces. And yeah, I'd like sort of like a more go into answering question if possible. It's not such a long one anyway. But if you want to sort of ask questions, or if I missed out something, or if my point wasn't clear, I'd like to clarify. I'd like to think about what you think. If not, I can go on talking about my own history, about why I came up with it, or technical issue about why I did it this way, that way, whatever. Okay.
Yes, thanks a lot. Can I ask a bit more about this particular scenario? What are we actually looking at in terms of moving further?
Right.
What do they kind of reflect?
So,
there's something
yeah.
behind, there's something
Right. Okay. Yeah.
into certain of these boxes, and these boxes are linked to websites?
They are linked to the website, but the original intention of this was to sort of, okay, I want to set up zones within a limited boundary and see the behavior of how people move around within these zones. Each of these zones would obviously influence each of the people or things which is moving within the space. But I didn't know exactly how each of these tiny bits get influenced. Then I came to think about, okay, why can't sort of internet sort of information start influencing these people? At the moment, it's stopping there. Obviously, if you could be sort of start programming further and further, once you get to one site and once you get another information, these people will start to change their behavior. Then you can start to analyze the space in a much more sort of there's this intuitive movement to start to become controlled movement, and you can sort of put this, because you can sort of put these places, like you can sort of, what happens if you put it in a sort of linear form, what happens if you sort of scatter them around, or what happens, you can sort of start testing with this little strange space. And so I tried to get what sort of information I can put into this. This is sort of open at the moment. Any information can be put in. We just have to be, I think, smart enough to come up with a good one. So at the moment, all I have is if you click onto, if you move your cursor onto the zones, it'll tell you the information down here that this place has been visited by this man here, 210 times. And that's basically all you get as an information. That's not good in a way. Yeah. They are totally random at the moment. They're just like moving around within the boundary of 5 pixels, I think. So that's another problem. I could be adding more sort of scripts in order to control somehow their behavior, or by getting.
And the relation of this program that you've done to
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this one at the moment, this is my limit in a way. This is all I can do with what I know. But intention was to think about how. Is there anything else? Okay, well, if you have any question, you're welcome to come into computer room and talk about it. I'm quite into this sort of thing, so if you want to sort of share some ideas with me, I'd be grateful. Thank you. This visually nice as well, isn't it?
So these the colors are the colors matching the colors of the box.
They are. As soon as you get into, say, yellow one, your color becomes yellow.
And then after, anyway, it would be useful to understand a bit more where the starting position is.
You actually would be on the computer.
And then are you counting how many of these random movements, how many times they come back to the box? Or?
You can. This is the first time it enters the box. This is the last time it enters the box. And that's the basic information you can, but you can add more and more and more to get the information more specifically. And actually...
Anyway, this technique of course this is not constrained by any boundary in that plane.
Within this, no. At the moment, no.
They just run the box.
Exactly.
They run through each other? Or?
They know, as soon as they meet, they bounce, and we call the mark as well.
Okay.
So
they're patching out.
Yeah.
They even don't go into already traverse
They do go into.
areas of another color?
They do go into. So they sort of rewrite the map, basically.
And it's the colors, you see, it doesn't go and get over. Oh, no, it does. Okay, it rewrites.
Yeah,
It
it
writes over.
rewrites,
It doesn't know where it has to go.
Exactly. That's one of the things. If one of the things you can still add, if it knows that it's been there 5 times, maybe it doesn't want to get there anymore. Sometimes. Or I mean, depending on what kind of space you can put it.
This kind of study, let's say the internet reputation.
Internet navigation.
But this becomes your way of thinking, scenario of users entering the site.
Right, yeah.
Is let's say accidental or could be partitioned off.
Right.
Not wrong, but it's one of many ways of interpreting that figure.
Yeah.
Is it anyway? So help me. Which program did you make?
This one's made by director. Hardcore scripting in a way, but I still need to know more. No, that's how you could get the mix. I won't be able to use Java or anything, so that's my limit.
No, I think it's perfectly fine as a diagram. So I'm trying to figure out. There is a dynamic diagram.
But anyway, what's going to happen is hopefully this thing's going to be on the network somehow. And hopefully people can start to sort of reacting to what they see. And hopefully if that works, it would be great in a way. But anyway, to get sort of, want to bring in all these chances into the network information. These days we get sort of like you come across with an information by chance, but you never come across with someone by chance. It's hard to happen. So that's another thing which the internet can still be doing more. An architect could be designing to produce events.
Do you have now a real offline connection?
It has real online. No, it's coming down into there, that server.
Thanks a lot.
No, thank you.
Splinter away.
are you going to continue on education, like programming or write plugins and be able to break that barrier?
Actually, that's not. I would rather find someone who can do it. I won't get into that as an